Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I want to ask for a moment that my colleagues imagine a situation. Imagine a few years down the road that a Republican president announces he has instructed the Justice Department to no longer enforce the Clean Air Act, that he has told the Justice Department to no longer prosecute violations of the Clean Air Act. My colleagues on the other side of the aisle would rise up with frustration and indignation. They would say the President has failed to faithfully execute the laws passed by Congress as he is constitutionally required to do, and they would be right to do so. Mr. Speaker, that is exactly what is happening in our country today. President Obama has chosen unilaterally not to enforce our nation's long-standing immigration laws. He has made this decision without any consultation with Congress and entirely alone. Think for a moment about the precedent this action sets, that a president can alter long-standing law simply through an executive memo and his words. A president can simply say that he's not going to enforce the law. That would be frightening to all Americans, regardless of political belief. Let's be clear what this action is not. It is not prosecutorial discretion. No one doubts that the president has prosecutorial discretion, but this goes far beyond that power and enters into new territory that, frankly, has never before been touched. I believe this issue was settled long ago, before our country was even founded. You see, in the 17th century in Britain, during this big fight between the kings of England and Parliament, the king said that he had prerogative powers, the ability to override Parliament. And there were battles, there were wars in Britain about how this was going to be settled. And the Parliament determined, in consultation with the courts, that the king couldn't on his own do that he couldn't just simply say, I'm going to dispense with the laws or suspend their operations for a period of time. Our founding fathers knew this history well. And when they put together the Constitution of our country in Article 2, they had that in their mind when they gave to the President the obligation, not the option, the obligation to faithfully execute the laws, all the laws of the United States, regardless of whether the President agrees with those laws or not. I would say that this type of executive action is clearly not what the founders had in mind when they drafted our Constitution. The main overriding goal of our forefathers was to prevent the executive from becoming too powerful, and they went to great effort to ensure a strong system of checks and balances. President Obama's executive action runs in the face of how our government was designed to operate. Let's also remember that earlier this year, President Obama said his policies, all of them, would be on the ballot in the midterm elections. And the American people went to the polls and soundly rejected the president's policies. They made clear they were not supportive of more unilateral executive action. They wanted us to work together. And as a Congress, we warned the president not to go forward with this executive action. Mr. Speaker, we need a solution to our nation's immigration problem. But by using executive action, the president has made finding common ground far more difficult. I believe this House should rise above the actions of the president. And early next year, we should send the president real border security legislation, much like the border security legislation we passed in this House this past summer, yet the Senate wouldn't even take up. This House should pass legislation to update and fix the worker visa program. This House should pass legislation to put in place E-Verify for all employers. This House should pass legislation to tighten internal security. Then and only then, when we go through all of those pieces of legislation, should we even begin to discuss what we're going to do about the millions of people who are in this country illegally. You see, Mr. Speaker, the more the president acts outside the bounds of his powers, the harder it becomes to actually achieve a solution. It leads me to wonder, does President Obama actually want a long-term lasting solution to immigration? His actions imply otherwise. So, Mr. Speaker, I ask the President to rethink his approach to the immigration debate. I urge him to abandon this ill-conceived executive action and instead to come to the table and work with the Republicans and Democrats in the Congress in both houses to find together the common-sense solutions that we need to find for these problems. We're capable of doing that. That is how our founders intended our government to operate, and anything other than that is a disservice to the American people. And I yield back.
The gentleman's time has expired.